But bears are the only non-human animal that cooperate with other unrelated individuals.
Hey little Jenny, how's it going? Good to see you, sweetie. Hey buddy boy. Hi. Hi, Abby dog. Are you sleeping? Hi. Hi. So the other day in my tiny little town of 750 people, I went to our public library to listen to a lecture.
So for us, this is a talk about our friends and neighbors. So without further ado, Ben Killam.
The lecturer was a guy by the name of Ben Killam. And for those of you guys who don't know who Ben Killam is, Ben is actually one of the foremost researchers on black bears. For approximately the last 30 years or so, Ben has been very closely watching black bear behavior and what they do and how they interact, their social structures and behavior patterns. These days, Ben and his wife actually run a nonprofit focused on studying the bears as well as rehabilitating and raising orphan bear cubs.
Ben, a world-renowned bear rehabilitator, hand feeds the cub 4 times a day.
The Killam's work on bears and bear research has been covered in countless documentaries and films.
The striking thing about bears is their social behavior.
I mean, heck, Ben has even been on David Letterman to talk about bears.
Would you like to buy a monkey?
When a noted guy like that comes to your tiny little town to talk about bears, a topic you're very personally passionate about, it's like an absolute no-brainer that you're gonna go to your town's library to see that talk. Good morning, birds! Hey there, chickens! How's everybody doing? Waking up? Oh, looks like somebody already laid an egg this morning. Wow. Oh, that was you. Sorry, girl. Abby, do you know where the goose eggs are? So just a quick temperature check here. We got 15 degrees outside and 34 degrees Fahrenheit inside. Uh-oh. The door is frozen to the ground. There we go. Yeah, we're starting to develop kind of this awful mud puddle that settles right about here. I was not disappointed by my experience of going to see Ben Killam talk.
In the 1850s, 85% of New England was open agricultural land. And on top of that, there was a bounty on black bears until 1955. And it was only with the regrowth, the second growth forests that came back in New Hampshire, and the old fields turned into berries and then turned into woods, did the bears have habitat again. And since then, the bear population has been increasing.
The guy knows just an insane amount of information about bears and things that I never would have thought about or even realized.
The nice thing about black bears is I've studied their behavior, and I've found that they share our social behavior, so they're able to make friends with strangers and cooperate with them.
And for roughly 2 hours, I just sat in the basement of our town's library, absolutely transfixed, as the man dropped some serious science on the behavior of bears.
Dropping science like Galileo dropped the orange.
You know, one of the things I never really knew or thought about before was just how little we knew about bears. And really how much of Ben's work has informed humanity as a whole on the behavior and social systems of bears.
The big surprise in my study was there was a number of unrelated females that Squirty cooperated with, but bears are the only non-human animal that cooperate with other unrelated individuals. When Squirty was a yearling, I released her up on my property. I had a remote cage and I walked her and her siblings to the top of the ridge. They marked all the way up to the top, and when I went back to the cage, they followed me back, marking all the way back. I got up there the next morning and they were gone. I went up to the top of the ridge and I had a signal on them. Normally I could get close enough and call them and they'd all come over to me. On this day they ran. I suspected they might be with another bear. The next morning I decided to sneak in on them and see what was going on. I had the wind right. They were feeding in a beach stand, and as I was going into the beach stand, I broke a large stick. My two cubs ran and treed up a large red maple tree. They were moaning, a nervous moan, like I was a stranger. And this wild female, we call Moose, came running over and false charged me, defending my cubs from me. And then, as I stood there, my scent got up to my cubs. They recognized who I was. They came down out of the tree. They approached me. They sniffed me nose to nose as bears greeted each other, and then they pinned their ears and bit me on my forends, punishing me for chasing off or interfering with their time with this wild female.
It was also fascinating to hear Ben talk at length about his experiences with their social structures.
The first thing, when they emerge from the dens, the first thing the mother bear does is build a nest at the bottom of a good climbing tree. She'll coach her cubs the very first time they attempt to climb.
You know, at one point in Ben's lecture, he actually talked about bear populations and how they regulate themselves.
Considering natural food supply, the bears have the means to manage their own population based on that natural food supply. Unfortunately, the food supply is not natural. The amount of human foods that enter the food chain is huge. From bird feeders to our unprotected garbage, landfills, corn crops, other agricultural crops, bears get an excess of food.
Whether you live in the middle of nowhere like us or in the suburbs like my mom, it's absolutely crucial to take your bird feeders down when the bears come out of hibernation. Lock up your garbage nice and tight. If you have chickens or bees, make sure you're using electric netting and fencing to keep them away. And above all else, don't feed the bears. To Ben's point, bears will naturally regulate their population levels based on the available food from nature. But when you throw food resources from humanity into the mix, it makes things a little bit screwy. You know, another thing that I heard from Ben that had confirmed some things that I had typically thought but never really heard from anybody else.
85% of the black bear's diet is vegetative. Having said that, 10 to 15% is animal protein. And of the animal protein, 90 to 95% is ants, bees, and grubs. Bears are opportunistic predators. They don't respond to movement or sound in the woods, but they will take a weakened animal. And they will take things like chickens, which are essentially a weakened animal.
But I often like to think about the black bear and its role in our ecosystem here on a farm in northern Vermont. And I've often described black bear behavior as like the game randomizer, where the black bear will help distribute seeds and eat certain berry populations and then poop them out and redistribute them. They're also known for breaking down and destroying things. And while we were at the talk, I asked Ben what he thought the bear's role in the ecosystem was.
In a word, chaos.
And I found it to be a very enlightening answer.
They disrupt the environment. I mean, they're digging for ants, they're breaking down logs so they can decompose faster. They're feeding on berry patches, disseminating seeds.
It's amazing to me that even with Ben's work, we still know so little about black bears and we still have so much to learn from them. And just listening to Ben talk and seeing the stuff that he's doing, it truly does have me wanting to learn more as well.
Like when I think about the footage that we've captured around our farm over the last few years of black bears, it really does leave me in awe every time I watch those video clips. I mean, just look at them. They're such magnificent, incredible creatures. And to see them just active and wandering around our farm, and to see just how robust a population of black bears that our farm's able to support between our oak trees and our beech trees and our apple trees and all the berries that grow around here. It really does have me fascinated. And when I look at the work that Ben Killam and his family have done at the Killam Bear Center, it really does have me inspired and have me wanting to pay more attention and do more to study the bears that are around our farm. Not necessarily in the intensive way that Ben does, And by the way, if you want to check out the Killam Bear Center or even donate to the Killam Bear Center and support their work, I'll leave a link down below at the bottom of this video. But as I see what happens as the bears wander our farm and do their thing, it has me recognizing that they are residents of this farm just as much as I am, or my cattle, or my ducks, or my geese, or my livestock guardian dogs. And heck, when I think back to when I first drew our farm's logo back in 2016, you know, the black bear was always central to that logo, and it's always been that way. And so the black bear will always have a home here on our farm, and I know that I'm going to need to pay more attention to them, and I know I'll probably have to do more work to help protect them.